Writing Plans of Correction. This web-based training was developed by Orange Person Chatham Area Programs Quality Improvement Provider Relations Department to assist providers in writing plans of correction that will meet criteria for approval. A plan of correction, also referred to as a POC, is a systematic method of eliminating or minimizing the reoccurrence of an out-of-compliance finding. In other words, it is your plan for how your agency will fix or resolve whatever issues or problems that have been identified in an audit, review, or monitoring. A provider may receive a request for a plan of correction from the North Carolina Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services, the local management entity, the North Carolina Division of Health Service Regulation, if your facility is licensed, or a national accreditation organization such as CARF, CQL, COA, or the Joint Commission if your agency is accredited. The focus of this web-based training is writing a POC for the LME. The December 15, 2008 revision of the POC policy and procedure states that the director of the LME or his or her designee may assign, review, approve POCs, as well as provide technical assistance as needed to providers to facilitate the successful implementation of appropriate corrective actions. The LME may request a POC based on out-of-compliance findings during any of the following: an endorsement review, a local monitoring review, a health and safety review of an unlicensed alternative family living home, a complaint investigation, a Level 3 incident investigation, or other reviews such as post-payment reviews. Because there are so many rules, statutes, regulations, policies, and procedures that providers have to know about and adhere to when delivering mental health, developmental disability, and substance abuse services in North Carolina, most providers will have to write a plan of correction in response to some type of monitoring or review. This is normal and to be expected. The term plan of correction is used by the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services in all 50 states. All across the country, plans of correction are being written and implemented by inpatient and outpatient health, mental health, developmental disability, and substance abuse service providers. This includes hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, etc. We say this again to calm your fears and assure you that this is a normal occurrence. All POCs need to include 4 elements. Number 1, a statement of the problem or issue. Number 2, a description of the actions you will take to correct the problem. Number 3, a time frame within which you will begin implementing the corrective actions, as well as an expected date by which you will have completed the corrective actions. And 4, a responsible person identified to oversee the implementation of each of the corrective action steps. After the POC is written, it is submitted to the LME for approval. The person at the LME who receives and reviews the POC looks to see that the provider has accurately stated the issue to be corrected, that the corrective action steps are appropriate to address the issue, that the proposed corrective action steps are realistic, and that the proposed timetable is realistic. The reviewer also looks to see that the proposed timetable is compact enough to assure corrective action in a reasonable time frame. You need to make sure that your proposed timetable will give you enough time to produce evidence that the corrective action has been implemented before your 60-day implementation review. The reviewer also looks to see that action steps are addressed in sufficient detail to indicate a thoughtful and well-planned response to the issues to be addressed. You need to write your corrective action steps in a way that the reviewer can easily see that you put lots of thought and planning into how to best address the issue. If training is a component of the corrective action plan, the reviewer needs to see that there is sufficient detail that indicates planning and implementation of the training, such as proposed dates for the training, a location for the training, a presenter for the training. The reviewer also needs to see that the proposed action steps is addressed in sufficient scope to ensure systemic root causes are identified and addressed. Now that you understand the necessary components for a plan of correction, and you know what the reviewer will be looking for, you're ready to write your POC. First, identify and correctly state the problem or issue. There should be a separate reference for each out-of-compliance item. For example, if you receive a request for a plan of correction for local monitoring, please look at your monitoring report. Look at the column that says Rating from the Worksheet and indicate the wording for the POC. For example, the provider has a QM plan that partially meets requirements for being current and integrating QA/QI throughout the organization. Another example from the provider monitoring tool might be that data is not shared with the QM committee, analyzed and used to identify opportunities for improvement, QI initiatives are not recommended or are not implemented, progress is not monitored, needed adjustments are not made. Do not write or respond to comments made in the report, but write the out-of-compliance element. The comments may help you better determine which portion of the element is out of compliance, but write the entire element from the provider monitoring tool. The next step will be to write the action steps. The corrective action steps need to be specific. We need to see a step-by-step plan for how the problem or issue will be addressed. Even if you plan to address an issue in the same manner in which you addressed another issue, write out the steps again. Remember when writing corrective action steps that you need to speak to how the problem will be resolved systemically to prevent reoccurrence. For example, if staff members JK and MN have expired CPR and first aid trainings, the plan should not only say how you're going to go about getting JK and MN trained, but also what you're going to change or implement at your agency to bring to your attention the need for trainings before they expire. The next step in writing your POC is identifying a responsible person. Each out-of-compliance item or issue should have a responsible person identified for it. Specific names with accompanying titles are the best choice. State the person's name and title. For example, if the problem is a quality management problem, the responsible persons may be the QI director and the agency CEO. The final step in writing your POC is identifying a timetable for the implementation and completion of the corrective action steps. When you plan your timelines, keep in mind that in general there will be a follow-up visit within 60 calendar days of the accepted POC to confirm implementation of the POC. Let's look at an example of a POC. At an area provider agency, OPC completed a local monitoring review and found that 4 out of 10 background checks were completed after the date of hire. On the provider monitoring report, The POC element reads, less than 100% of staff records reviewed meet background check and disclosure requirements. Therefore, this is what you will write as the issue requiring corrective action. If the agency were to write, we will complete criminal background checks for the 4 personnel files reviewed at the monitoring that were found to be out of compliance, the POC would not be approved because the corrective action is not systemic. However, if they wrote, we will complete criminal background checks for the 4 personnel files reviewed at the monitoring that were found to be out of compliance, our agency's QI committee will complete quarterly reviews of personnel files to monitor compliance. We will also create a checklist for use in the process of hiring personnel. The plan would be approved because the action is systemic. It not only addresses the out-of-compliance personnel files, but outlines a plan for avoiding this problem in the future. For a responsible party, you should be very specific and not say something vague like whoever has free time, but name the persons and state their title and position. For timeline, just be mindful to implement the action steps before the 60-day review. Keep in mind that the plan needs to be able to minimize and/or eliminate the out-of-compliance issue. You must be able to show evidence that the problem or issue has been minimized or eliminated before the 60-day follow-up visit. However, please do not send attachments or evidence with the POC. Evidence will be reviewed during the 60-day POC implementation review. When developing or implementing plans of correction, you should consider the following. Read the plan of correction requests objectively to understand what you are being asked to do. Review the standards you are supposed to meet to fully understand the nature of the cited problems. Involve agency leadership and all affected staff in the development and implementation of the plan. Write the plan as if your goal is agency improvement, not to satisfy an external mandate. The plan can also serve as a quality improvement activity to improve agency functioning. Consider using outside assistance to get an objective perspective. Feel free to contact LME staff with questions. Continuously monitor agency performance. Plan to use the internal controls, self-reviews, and tracking processes developed for the plan of correction even after the problems are resolved. Within 15 calendar days of receipt of your POC, the LME will send you a response letter to your plan of correction, informing you of whether or not your plan of correction has been approved. If your POC is accepted, you receive a letter informing you that the POC is accepted. Within no more than 60 calendar days of the date of acceptance, a follow-up review will be completed, either on-site at your agency or at the LME, to ensure that the POC was followed and out-of-compliance findings have been minimized or eliminated. If your POC is not accepted, you will receive a response letter from the LME specifying the criteria by which the POC was determined unacceptable, requesting a second plan of correction. You must resubmit the POC in full within 10 calendar days of receipt of the notification letter. If the second POC is unacceptable, you will receive a response letter within 15 calendar days indicating that the matter has been submitted to the appropriate personnel for possible withdrawal of endorsement for endorsed services or revocation of authorization to receive public funding for providing mental health, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse services pursuant to state rule for non-endorsed services. For more detailed information about plan of correction requirements and timelines, please reference the Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, Substance Abuse Services Plan of Correction Policy dated December 2008, located on the Division website. For technical assistance, please contact me Paula Newman, at 919-913-4133, or email me at pnewman@opc-mhc.org. We do hope that this Writing Plans of Correction web-based training has been helpful. Thank you.